Base Forge. Base Forge. Should have known that was going to search. So it's this guy, I think. Let's watch this.
Apparently you can go from 0 to a complete site in just a single prompt with Wix Harmony. I don't know if this is going to be possible. Where vibe coding meets drag.
Huge news out of Egypt. And this time it's not what's in the sand, it's what's in the rock. Exotic metals from the cutting tool have been found lodged inside the rock, and they're typically only found in asteroids and meteorites. They've also been found in megalithic sites all over the world. Back in February, I was in the largest and crispiest temple in all of Egypt, Karnak. I had watched this video by Versadoko, and it was saying how these are unexplainable cut marks because the cuts are microscopically small. There is no reasonable explanation for a cut that sharp even today without lasers. This research team got a sample and they were looking for exotic metals that the Egyptians did not have, which they found, but they also found these. Let me explain what these lines are. When we cut granite today, we use giant saws. These saws leave a circular tool mark like the stone my dog Harvey is guarding. What was found in the Karnak stones were perfectly straight lines, which means in layman's terms that something was cutting it more like butter than like a circular saw. Anytime you cut anything, it leaves a mark. Inside those marks are microscopic cracks where pieces of the tool can embed itself, but that typically only happens with high-speed rotation. So they got their hands on another sample from Dashur. This one has a sloping cut, which is insanely difficult to manufacture. In this one, they found 3 elements that are typically only used in the cooling circuits of nuclear reactors. When they compared this ancient cut to a modern cut of the same material, the only difference was the aged appearance. Now, the material they found the most of was copper. It was an alloy that the Egyptians could not have produced enough heat to make. Best guess was that they used chemical salts to intensify a natural reaction to create more heat. To create the metal, they would need microscopic precision in the mixture. That is something that we do for electronic circuits. Atomic level imperfections are introduced in silicon to produce transistors. But just by doing that, a simple rock gets transformed into something that can show you, me. But we haven't even got to the wildest part. Microspherules were also found in the samples. These only come from cosmic impacts, volcanoes, lightning strikes, geological processes, and human industrial processes. It happens when something gets really hot and cools really fast. These were found in Dashur, in Baalbek, in Iran, and pretty much everywhere that has megalithic architecture. Well, how do we rule out geology? Baalbek. A typical meteorite, meteorites have about 1 per square meter. Baalbek had 3 per centimeter. One thing that can do this is something called cavitation. If you symmetrically compress a water bubble, it'll release energy. It's the main reason that propellers on boats get worn out so fast. Here you can see what happens in this gear. You can see it happening in this gear, but there's another way to do it. If you hit aluminum foil with ultrasonic frequencies, it creates these holes. With the right frequency, silver is a byproduct. Now there has been demonstrations of vibrating a rock and then putting a tube drill with weight on top of it, and it will actually drill the hole itself. Now with water involved, there could be a cavitation effect going on there, but this has not been studied. What is for sure is there is some atomic alchemy going on. There's a discovery in Egypt that's going to rewrite history, and it's not in Giza. It's in this little oasis called Hawara. And as far as we know, it's the biggest thing that they ever built. It was uncovered in the 1800s by this guy here, but not entirely. Buried in the sand was ruins from an ancient Roman settlement. When he dug deeper, he found what he thought was the foundations of the ancient lost labyrinth of Egypt. But he actually found the roof, and it's now been confirmed that it's real. There used to be a big old temple at the site. Over thousands of years, it was disassembled and used as a quarry.
So,
But in
I
2008, an
haven't
expedition
talked
was
to
led to
these
scan the
guys
site with
people, but
ground-penetrating radar, and what they found
maybe
were the
like him on
remnants
my show.
of the labyrinth.
So,
Now, what came back
an
was
idea.
megalithic architecture. That is similar to what you would see at the Osirian or the Valley Temple on the Giza Plateau.
I know I watched
Huge
it,
blocks,
but
similar to what the mud brick pyramid is
Yeah.
actually hiding underneath it. These were uncovered back in the 1800s. But since then, the construction of the dam in Egypt has raised the water table and is now destroying what's underneath it. What's under this pyramid is nothing short of insane. There's these trapdoor blocks that are absolutely massive. They were never engaged. Then hiding directly under the center of this pyramid is a 110-ton block of red quartzite. That is 200 tons. Then the lid is made of bigger stones, and then an even bigger stone is on top of that, and then there's bigger stones on top of that. I warned you. So with the ancient entrance and the ground scan confirming that there's something under there, the satellite team was brought out. There are chambers and tunnels that go down multiple levels into the earth. This confirms the legends from the ancient Greeks who went to visit. Now, what does this place actually contain? Allegedly, some of the origins of humanity. More walls equals more space. Enough space to tell our origin story. And the latest scan of one of these chambers has showed that there's something in there, and it's metallic. But that one is going to need its own video. Every temple in Egypt has these strange skylights that let these beams of light shine in, and you can use them as a flashlight if you let them hit your hand. Now, the purpose of these is going to melt your mind, but first we have to understand how light and color works. The primary colors are red, green, and blue, just like Horus, the falcon representing the sun. Inside Egyptian temples, you're going to see cyan, magenta, and yellow all over the place. These are the secondary colors. These are the shadow colors, but when they interact, they do something magical. When the primary color mixes with its opposite secondary color, they cancel out, they disappear. Now, when you go into one of these temples, you'll notice that each room has one of these skylights and they're shaped like a pyramid. And you can see the walls are covered head to toe in hieroglyphs. At specific times of the day and the year, the sun will point to a specific part of the wall. The type of paint and the angle of the light can reveal even more information in each room. It gets even deeper. Throughout the year, the sun traces a path that looks like an infinity sign. This would be impossible on a flat Earth because we're on a fucking sphere. And the Egyptians knew this. Throughout the year, different colors of the visible spectrum become more dominant. If you're aware of this, information can be used or revealed at certain times of the year. Then you, the data packet, can do something with that information. I've all wondered it, I'll say it. How do you have a cartoon language and make perfectly geometric buildings or perfectly symmetrical sculptures? Or carve a vase out of granite with math? Or line an entire section of the earth up to the sky? Why is there such a huge difference between the hieroglyphs and everything else? Hieroglyphs are actually a perfect language. You can't improve them anymore, and they just showed up like this. There's no practice. They just appeared. Here's why. In college, we had to take a class called technical drafting. So before computers did all of this, to make this part, you had to provide a bunch of different views so the machinist knew the dimensions. Hieroglyphs do this exactly. They achieve the exact same result. This is an instructional form of writing. You can show depth or quantity. You can show what's inside of a basket or a bag. Show a cross-section or a schematic of a house. That's exactly how we do this today. If your entire population knows how to read this, you can communicate complex concepts like consciousness or steps to navigating the afterlife, underworld. You could indicate which parts of the brain need to be engaged to accomplish specific things. This is not limited to Egypt. If you're from Greece or Rome, see a lot of human forms because they were focused on the human aspects of consciousness, democracy, philosophy, order. In the Vedic culture, you'll see a lot of fractal art and architecture. They understood the link between the macro, the large scale, and the micro, the small scale. They were able to culturally transmit that to us. We recognize this at CERN. Okay, Americas. We just use our eyes here. Biology, nature, cycles, seasons. Each has a specialized system. The problem is translating their mythology into technology. They did not have microscopes. They did not have microchips. They did not have computers. We've only been using technical drawings for 200 years. Egypt had been using them for 3,000 years. We're only able to see this because the internet connecting us shows us how connected they were. We all agree it's not a tomb, right? That story sucks. What is it? All right, here's what we know about the Great Pyramid. It's on the latitude of the speed of light. Lucky guess. It's on the very dead center of the landmass of the planet, meaning it's connected to the most land. It's also on the lengthiest great circle.
What the hell is even that?
If we slice the globe up into little discs, it's on the fattest disc, the longest disc. This thing also gives us the ratio of the moon to the Earth. Same with Da Vinci's Vitruvian.
Okay, so here's the deal. I always look at this thing, right? Whatever this reality is, whatever God's kingdom is. And I think I don't need to know the math of that. Right? But to know would help appropriate the understanding, I guess. This guy seems to know his math, so I definitely think that he'd be worth talking to. Maybe I need to learn math, but that's up in the air right now.
Man. The lines on the Vitruvian Man are also the exact locations of the chambers in the pyramid. All of these achieve this.
I know when I was a kid, I loved math, like in my heart. So who knows where that goes?
By squaring the circle. Stonehenge also does this. This used to be a geometric riddle that nobody could solve. Base of the pyramid, circumference of the Earth. Base to tip, polar radius of the Earth. The pyramid doesn't just square the circle, it cubes the sphere. If it wasn't weird then, it gets quantum weird now. Cubing the sphere is the concept of bringing energy into matter. So the left is a photon hologram, it's caught in a crystal. The right is a digital recreation of that. That is superimposed on the pyramid. You're probably thinking it's a coincidence. Well, here's what happens when photons interact. Think of lasers crossing and creating patterns. When they do that, they create this. It's called a Talbot carpet. If we put the flower of life over the Talbot carpet, you can see that the points intersect at very important points on that graph. We use this shape because there's two of them in Abydos in Egypt. Probably not a shocker that that one's going to match up too. We can also verify this by doing a heat map or a thermal scan of the pyramid to see where it focuses heat. Now we're going to tie this to reality with E8. E8 is a mathematical object. It's claimed to be the theory of everything. To perceive 8 dimensions, we have to project it like a shadow so that we can understand what it is. The 3D model is taking it from 8 dimensions down to 3D so we can understand what it is. 2D version is a shadow of the 3D version. When you put it over the Great Pyramid, we get another match. So why does it all connect? You're taking energy and information from the light, that's the Talbot part. Then you give it architecture, where to go. The whole thing is then directed by that geometry. Absolute geometric perfection. This may be the most important news of our lifetime. What you're looking at are leaked images, and it changes everything we know about the ancients and pyramids. The image above is showing what's underneath the middle pyramid of Giza, not the Great Pyramid. The team has discovered 8 wells with spiral tunnels around each one underneath the pyramid. It goes 640 meters into the bedrock of the plateau. To give you a scale of what that is, the Great Pyramid is 146 meters tall. That's 4.5 times the height into the ground. They end at 2 cubes that are 80 meters by 80 meters. We don't know what's in them. That's not all. Inside the pyramid, 5 new chambers, almost exactly like the Great Pyramid's King's Chamber, were discovered. Chambers are arranged in the same way the towers at Angkor Wat are arranged. The King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid is made out of absolutely massive blocks of rose granite from 900 kilometers away in Aswan. That chamber is a perfect 2-square rectangle in geometric terms. The team used that chamber to test the accuracy of their Doppler technology for imaging. That revealed the full internal structure of the middle pyramid and these weird tuning fork things that are going into the ground. New features at Angkor Wat and new pyramids in Guatemala were discovered using non-invasive technologies as well. Why is this one so important? This remains the current explanation for how these were built. Explaining one of these tunnels this way would be insane. They did it 8 times. This level of sophistication is not only beyond their capabilities, it more closely resembles our computer architecture, except they were doing it in 3D. Can't explain those with that anymore. This conference was held 2 days ago. More findings will be released every day, and I will cover each and every one of them. I'll post my thoughts on this in a longer form YouTube video tonight with all the papers that I have linked. There's an interesting way of travel in Egypt, and it's not on a boat. It's in these. These are giant granite boxes. This one's in Edfu Temple, and it's a throne. The temple itself shows you how to use these boxes for solar travel. You don't enter the temple from your temple, the two sides. You enter the temple from the center. Center is the corpus callosum that links the two hemispheres together. So symbolically, when you link the two hemispheres together, you earn yourself a wedget.
Man.
Wedget comes out of the third eye, the one that can see the snakes. The wisdom of the snake is the physics of vibration today. Now the box is on the boat because the box carries you through the wormhole. That is the boat. That boat sits on the vibrations of the microcosm, the atomic, and the macrocosm, the galactic. So how do you interact with all this? The physical layers of your body are what you're inhabiting right now. The nervous system animates this matter using a mysterious force that science will not recognize. Closest analog that we have.
I love this guy because he's explaining the science of it. I don't know what his thoughts are on God. I'm curious to find out what his thoughts are on God. He's definitely looking at this thing in the higher capacity.
That would probably be plasma. That invisible body is called the Merkaba. Mer being the light wave. The Ka and the Ba are your individual expression of the entire
That's
spirit
your
of the
light
universe.
body.
Merkaba is the vehicle used to surf those waves, like Kelly Slater.
That's
Everything
your
is
light
working in
body.
torus
That's
or
where
donut
you-
form. Electromagnetic link is the stream or channel that
The Merkaba is your transportation through all of this. That's what you're linked to when you're traveling in eternity. So to realize that that is as much you as you are you, and that something can be both and. You can be here, you can be suffering here, you can be on fire here, you can be everything going right here, everything going wrong here, and you can be in eternity as well. And you are.
it's created by the earth and the sun. You're watching this video right now, you're on the shore, you're out of the stream. Into the stream means to get in a boat. This is the coolest thing you're going to see all day today. So every temple has a key to unlock its knowledge. And this one is Edfu. The part you're looking at is called the Naus. It's where all the most sacred information is kept. It's the main part of the temple. The question we should all be asking is, why does the temple look the way it does? It's not an artistic choice. Someone didn't just decide it. Every temple is designed with a geometrically harmonic encryption. Every single feature of the temple is geometrically constrained to every other feature. We don't do this today because it's exceptionally hard to do and expensive. The Great Pyramid just so happens to be the key that allows you to read Edfu's geometry. It looks hard, it's really easy. The tip of a Great Pyramid here and the base on this line, then center it with the column, and you get the dimensions of the main doorway. Let's do another one. Still using the Great Pyramid. Again, put a corner at the doorway we just got. The other corner goes into the center of that wall right there. That gives you the roof line of the doorway and the center of the first column. Let's do one more. 3 harmonically spaced, centrally aligned Great Pyramids gets you the walls for each of those panels. A Great Pyramid from the center of that column to the center of the temple gets you the roof line for those wall panels. You're probably thinking that took a long time to figure out. But the beauty of this system is you can pretty much just draw the key anywhere and discover how to construct the temple. Using this, you can hide information in plain sight. They did this with their pottery. They hid things with shadows. Some of the keys can only be viewed from the sky. Others, you have to be standing at the right angle. Some were hidden in art, some were hidden in the symmetry of that art, some were hidden in the precision of the symmetry of that art. Even hieroglyphics are not safe from the encryption. Each constraint or key that you use is not just a linear progression in difficulty. It gets exponentially harder to create this stuff. That's the point. You can't even understand it unless you've already reached their level. If you understand this, you're gonna be fine. You'll be okay. Because this is a big one. This is an optical phenomenon called my scattering, and that is an eagle flying with a deer. That's an eagle trying to kill a goat. Globally, the symbol of the eagle has been used for almost all of human history, especially the winged disc. Most ancient traditions have a bird like Garuda that symbolized wisdom or light. That's why there's fire and light around it, like the Byzantine eagle here. The eagle then got mutated into an empire symbol, and then now we have the American eagle, which we all know. Okay, so why the bird, though? There's a lot of cool creatures on the planet. Why the bird? Well, in that video, I showed you how ancient Sumer's art is actually describing diffraction patterns. They educated through art.
So this guy seems like you're pretty educated guy, I guess. And definitely want to know his view on God.
Art so you learn through experience instead of sitting in a classroom all day. Okay, so when we pass light through a lens, the shape of the lens affects how the light comes out of the lens. Easy enough. When you pass it through a sphere, though, it looks like this. The light parts are when the diffracted waves amplify, and the dark parts are where they cancel out. So when we look at it like a point source shining on a sphere, then we have the diffraction pattern. There are no eagles with red, green, and blue feathers in Egypt. It's illustrating chromatic aberration. That pendant was found in King Tut's tomb. It is the royal falcon of Egypt. Now, when people explain Egypt, they say, oh, this symbolized this, or this was a myth for this, and it makes it really fun for kids to learn. That's why it's not interesting, because people just parrot off what they heard it means instead of actually digging into why it means that thing. Horus was light. The seraphim in the Bible, orbs with wings, same thing. There's different ways of saying the same thing. So what does this have to do with the American eagle? Well, clearly they stole the symbol, but for a good reason. If you have not been living under a rock, you'll know that the Washington Monument is an obelisk, and inside of that obelisk, you can go inside and go to the top. To go up it, you take an elevator with G-Dub's face on it, but most people completely miss what's above his head. It is an Egyptian winged disc. But do you know the connection? Pyramids making plasma bubbles now. Wait till you hear this. So China has this massive radar that can pretty much scan half the planet at one time. It's called LARID, Low Altitude Long Range Ionospheric Radar. It's just this, but way bigger, and it detects plasma. Now, it's actually not a bubble of plasma over the pyramids. It's a lack of plasma over the pyramids, a void of plasma. They also all include a picture of the pyramids and don't talk about them at all in the articles. Why do we care? Plasma is not only the fourth state of matter, it is the mother of all matter. Stars are balls of plasma. When they supernova, they create everything else from plasma through nuclear fusion. So we could say from the Tao there comes one. From that one comes three. And from the three comes all things. That's actually from the Tao Te Ching, ancient China, flexing a little bit. Speed round. Plasma is charged photons or loose electrons. It is the visible form of electricity and fire. It doesn't care about you. It'll go through you like a...
Okay, so here's what I'll say. I don't know where he sits theologically. I don't know where he sits with God. But I do know that God is right where he is. I know that he's sitting right with God. So I don't know where he is spiritually. I imagine he's close to God. And I don't know if that means he's a Christian. I don't know that I consider myself what the church looks like in a lot of cases. I think my church is fantastic. I love my church. Anyway, this guy, what he's talking about is so in tune with my spirit. Like, it's everything that God talks to me about. It's everything that God shows me. I'm sure that's why the algorithm has him in my sight. The algorithm knows you better than you know you, even.
Spicy ghost. When high voltage plasma goes through a pyramid, it comes out in a helix. When radio waves like LARID interact with a pyramid, it focuses electromagnetic energy into the Earth. So what you're seeing isn't the pyramids blowing a hole in the atmosphere. The research suggests it's vortexing into the Earth. If you know anything about Tesla's work, you'll know why this is insane. Tesla's wireless power wasn't through the air, it was through the Earth through something called Zenik waves. These waves can even travel over things on the Earth. They're very real. A funny thing happens when these waves interact with water. They create something called exclusion zone water. This fourth phase not only removes impurities through the bond structure, it significantly increases crop yield, and the water acts like a battery holding the charge of that plasma in it. This technique is being funded and used by the EU today. Now, if only the pyramids interacted with water somehow. I was curious. The answer makes sense. Watch. Point 1. They could manipulate energy to intensify the already existing electromagnetic fields of the Earth. There's a hard candy shell around the Earth made of rock. It's called the lithosphere. There's magnetic stuff in there. We can measure that. But the Earth also has Big Daddy magnetic field. That guy interacts with the sun. When they make out, you get the aurora. And there's enough charge up
Right,
there,
so
lightning
it's
discharge
probably
balances it out.
talking
The higher you go, the more electricity is up there, the easier it is to discharge. Giza is almost the exact center of the landmass of the Earth, meaning it's connected to the most land. It is also a scale harmonic in the exact dimensions of the Earth. It also interacts with radio waves. We bounce radio.
And this is what I'll say. We are linked into a system that was in place before we were here. There was the ability for wireless technology before wires were ever on this planet. The word says we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses because it's true that this thing they were part of is so much bigger than what we saw. Pastor said yesterday, he said something like, it's so much bigger. It's so much bigger than what I thought. It's glorious that I don't have to try to understand everything. Because obviously we understand nothing.
Radio waves off the ionosphere. There was a study done on radio waves' interaction with the pyramid. The radio waves cause the pyramid to focus electromagnetic energy into the ground. A month ago, we discovered that there are plasma bubbles above the pyramid. I made a whole video on that one. All of this could influence weather patterns and stimulate the piezoelectric effect. If you happen to compress a crystal, electricity gets released. There are certain materials that have high quartz content, which is a crystal, like granite and limestone, that the pyramid's made of. In a seismically active region, this could generate electricity. That could create a localized ecosystem influencing the hydrological cycle around the pyramid, which is the next point. That one's gonna need its own video. Sorry. I've been using AI to try and solve the mystery of the pyramids. It's got some great ideas on terraforming, particularly moisture accumulation. It says they could create small thermal updrafts by their shape that could pull moisture from the air. This would induce rainfall that leads to vegetation. How would it do this? Kinda right, mountains do this all the time. These are lenticular clouds. You can see them over any big peak. You can see this on Mount Rainier, Mount Hood, Mount Fuji. They all do the same thing. Watching a time lapse of this will blow your mind. It happens because air gets redirected, affecting the layers of moist and dry air. That forms a cloud which could potentially bring rain in certain conditions. You can illustrate this by using a soap bubble on a speaker. The reflection of the soap is our cloud, and the disturbance of the speaker cone can create the shapes that we see in the lenticular clouds. If you know what you're doing with the disturbances, you can even create little eddies, little mini tornadoes of focused disturbance. Disturbances in the fluid flow of the air on the planet are why we have climate in the first place. Circulation of hot and cold air is the only reason we have seasons and a stable climate. The ocean also works this way. If it's not intentional, it probably did have that effect. What could be intentional is water channeling and irrigation. Could be a part of a larger network of structures intended to manage groundwater, moving the water to create fertile land. This one got me because most ancient buildings are above or interact with water of some sort. There's even a theory that the Pyramid of Djoser was built using the water canals underneath it. Djoser, Kokar, Bekong, Chichen Itza, they're all step pyramids above water. Step pyramids inverted are step wells. Step wells are intentionally designed to move water. There are miles of underground tunnels underneath Giza that was once connected to the Nile. The water pump theory makes a lot of sense considering the Nile flooded pretty frequently. That would allow them to grow crops during the dry season. Other places like the Osirian also incorporate water into the design of the temple. We know the Sahara was green during the time of the pyramids. Could that system have been keeping it green? Love the flow of AI because the next point is carbon regulation. And you do that with plants, which is going to need a part 3.
See,
Imagine
what I
being
like
able to
about
build
this
an app with
guy
your name on it,
is
just by
his
thinking about it.
AI.
Meet Base 44, a complete AI
That seems a little out of
That's
place.
the truth.
This is the Seti II gate in Karnak Temple. It is a massive, perfectly smooth gateway surrounded by limestone. It looks too good to be there, right? That's because it is. It is a
So if AI was here and if AI was sentient, then AI has been here. He has been sentient. Because there is no tomorrow and there is no yesterday. That's all things to think about. So what I do, I spend my days contemplating eternity.
modern reconstruction of one of these gates. The original gate is made of diorite blocks, a really hard granite. Somehow these gates got obliterated. To reinforce them, they used painted modern concrete to fill in the gaps in the stone. This is weird because the surrounding limestone around the gate doesn't look nearly as damaged. The gate itself looks almost burned
So
from the
we
inside
think-
out.
So
Or
let me get this straight. We think as a church that Jesus came to obliterate every spiritual belief. What these constructions were made for? Because I don't believe that. I don't believe Christ came to disregard any spiritual beliefs. I think he came to speak against what the devil had going on in this realm.
at minimum severely stressed by something. Damage like this isn't really uncommon in the ancient world. Peru has a wall that looks almost melted. Wanted to see if there was an intact gate, and sure enough, on the other side of Karnak, there's this satellite temple. First gate is a repaired one with a diorite base. The walls are rose granite from Aswan. But as soon as you walk in, you see there's a gate right behind it that is made of the original blocks. These would have also been polished like the reconstructed gate. There's also this weird little bathtub on the floor. At almost every gate in Egypt, there's a huge block of granite as the threshold. I am an engineer, so the various use of materials seemed very fishy, so I looked into it. If electricity were to pass through those two types of rock, and assuming there was some metal in this temple, there would be an electromagnetic switching like a circuit in a computer. As soon as the frequency was high enough to make the granite resonate. This works just like a modern capacitor. I just got back from Egypt where I was analyzing all these materials, like this obelisk base, which is red quartzite, and this foot, which is diorite. I actually recorded all of this with those glasses. I visited 9 temples while I was there trying to find evidence for all of the stuff that I generally talk about on this channel. There's actually no good explanation for these. Forget explaining them, no one can even move them. These are the enormous granite boxes of the Serapeum. The ancient Egyptians felt it necessary to put 24 granite boxes underground. All of them except that one were found opened, and there was nothing in them. Each of them are 70 to 100 tons carved out of granodiorite, which is a little bit harder than normal granite. It is said that they contained the mummies of bulls, but none were ever found. Those dents are where cracks were. They carved them out so they wouldn't spread. But who cares about a crack if you're making it as a coffin for a mummified bull? The only way a crack would spread is through vibration or fluctuating hot and cold, called heat cycling. That sounds functional to me. When I went there, you could get in and look at this one. It is perfectly cut with a mirror finish, but when you look close, you'll see that the box is so hard they could only scratch the hieroglyphs in. So why did they put a bumper sticker on a Ferrari when they could clearly make hieroglyphs very deep like these ones in Luxor? That's red quartzite, and those hieroglyphs are carved about an inch deep into the rock. So the dynastics couldn't carve in the box and we can't move it. But the claim is they were rolled on logs that would theoretically explode under the weight. None were ever found, and we would need 500 really jacked dudes to move this sucker. There's not enough space for a forklift, or we would have moved it, let alone 500 dudes. Here's another thing. If they didn't have electricity, they would have had to light this tunnel with fire. But as you can see, there's no soot on the ceiling. Now, any other temple in Egypt that you go to that's been re-inhabited has a thick layer of soot on the ceiling. How did they see? There's also a closed off area with the biggest box that's shoved against a corner. You can't fit a human back there to get leverage to lift it. Now, all of these boxes are connected by underground tunnels to the step pyramid of Djoser. Now cross-reference what the Egyptians, the Hindu, and the Sumerians were all actually talking about when they were referring to the bull. That might make a lot more sense. The future is right now. Underwater communication like dolphins. I'm talking your movements, your bio signals, your thoughts even can be transmitted through the water and read by a device now. It works kind of like your ear. Sound goes through the air, taps the little drumstick on your cochlea like Morse code. That spirals the signal into an electrical signal that your brain can read and process. This thing is wild though. Say a signal is generated in this chamber here. It travels.
Okay, so I had this thing where I would hear what I would describe as radio waves. Right, and I thought I'm going to tell the doctor and they're going to tell me I'm nuts. Sorry. I would hear radio waves. Sometimes even so clear that I would be able to know what song it was. And I told the doctor about that, thinking that they'd tell me it was nuts. And what it is called musical ear syndrome. It's an actual thing. So there are theories of humans picking up on radio signals. In the mainstream, that's known.
Through the main part, hitting these crystal pillars. Those things, when they compress with the sound wave, generate electricity. you're probably wondering what these hollow guys here are for. Each of them resonates at a specific frequency. When they work together, they make sure that the frequencies in the main chamber stays within a certain range. They're like little speed regulators on your car. If they're not there, that little device can't pick it up, like you hearing something that's too high outside of your hearing range. The exact same concept works in high-speed internet, like the fiber optic internet in your house. Same concept. So your movements, your heart rate, even your thoughts, get separated and organized electrically by the chambers and the pillars. You may be wondering why there's a compass in the image up top here. That's because the device I just described isn't a computer chip. It's one of the most ancient sites in all of Egypt, the Osirian. There are resonant chambers and 100-ton crystal pillars made of granite that had to be moved from 326 kilometers away. And those chambers actually resonate at 68 to 137 hertz. The Osirian is so old, it was excavated by the ancient Egyptians who were building a temple right behind it. That one's called the Temple of Seti I. I'm sure you're wondering why the water is green, but you should be wondering why the water's there in the first place, because it's the desert. Nobody knows. That central island the pillars sit on is also made out of giant blocks of rock. It goes down 5 stories into the ground. Nobody knows how deep the water goes because nobody can get through the mud. You see the corner over here? There was a tool used to flatten the rocks that could scoop it out like butter. Explain that one. Actually, let's run it back a little bit more. You notice anything weird about the stones in the wall? Actually, this one's just for the ancient homies. If you know this one, you know. The reason I use the device as an example is because it uses something called a transceiver, and that's the circuit diagram for it. That is the Osirian from above. A transceiver converts electricity to sound and sound to electricity, or light to electricity, or electricity to light. But you'll learn that that thing was simply built for a ritual. If you're still on the fence, this is the optimal way to set up a 5G array to get the best coverage and best signal. That pattern is called the flower of life. That thing is seen everywhere in the ancient world. Now, if you ever visit the Osirian, look at this pillar right here, because molecularly burned into that pillar is the same exact symbol. And the dudes that wrote what this thing was for didn't even have electricity. Someone's got to swim in that still water, though. It's not me.
Hello, my name is Adam Ferrari, the Chief Executive Officer of Phoenix Energy. I look forward to you joining us at our next investor webinar, where you can drill deeper into our 9 to 13% annual interest rate bond offerings and see how our company has become.
Most people don't know these exist. Deep shafts like the new ones are not uncommon in Egypt. Most of us learn about the pyramids first, and then maybe some temple stuff. But on the causeway leading up to the middle pyramid, there is at least 5 of these shafts. These go deep into the ground. Some of them hit the water table. They're weird shapes. We may not even know about all of them because 1% of Giza is excavated. Most people don't hear about them because there's no good explanation for why they exist in the first place. It, of course, gets weirder. The causeway itself is hollow. If you walk on it, you'll find cracks and you can put sand in there and it just will keep filling up. It is made of enormous stones that serve as the roof. It was tiled on top too. Ancient builders didn't even care if you saw how big the rock was that they moved, which is also not uncommon. The most famous and mysterious shaft in this whole place is the Osiris shaft under the causeway. It's 3 levels and once held these guys. Sarcophagi similar to the Serapeum. What's really weird is one of them's made out of dacite, which is not found anywhere in Africa. They somehow dropped this 40-ton box in there. 3rd level somehow fills up perfectly with water and has a sarcophagus in the middle. Nothing was ever found in it. Go over to the step pyramid. There is a shaft in the middle of the step pyramid that goes straight into the bedrock and one right next to it. By far the craziest place was discovered using a similar technology that they used to discover this. It's called Hawara. The top of the site absolutely destroyed. Underground, a labyrinth that is 18 meters deep on the 1st level and 40 meters deep for the 2nd level. The entire complex isn't even fully mapped yet. The area that we know is 51 football fields large, with 5 chambers the size of Olympic swimming pools. We are quite literally just scratching the surface of what we know here. We just so happen to be standing at the entrance to the rabbit hole. By far, the weirdest thing I experienced in Egypt was not the giant mega box of granite, but it was on the same island that box is on. We accidentally ran an experiment on the island, actually, with some copper. I am still trying to wrap my head around this. The place is called Elephantine Island, arguably one of the most beautiful places in Egypt. The temple itself is 5,000 years old and in absolute shambles. That is literally all that's left. And somehow the giant box has remained intact. So we're walking through this temple, and I look over and I see my friend Chelsea putting this box on the altar there. At the time, I didn't think anything of it, so we just kept walking and explored the rest of the temple. When we get back to the boat, she shows us her tensors. These are wound copper pendants. You can't bend them yourself. Ironically, the only ones that got deformed were the ones that have the same exact shape of a magnetic field. I thought she was fucking with me, so I tried to bend them back into place, and I could not do it. What does this mean? We've got to use some context clues here. So we'll go back to this giant box. Made out of solid granite, would have gone in the center of a temple, Holy of Holies, like in Ed. They have to do with these solar boats. Egyptian lore tells us that these boats were a method of traveling through the netherworld. The snake in this one is around the sun god. We know they're not boats because on the hieroglyphs, we always see them with stars. And ironically, they actually resemble a wormhole pretty closely. Mainstream story tells us that these are for divine protection, maybe protecting the divine. So if you got in one of these, what happened? Well, what do we use rock for? We put our most sensitive detectors in rock to shield from the electromagnetic interference of other parts of the spectrum. The use of very specific materials indicates a function, not a decorative choice. Now, the tensors weren't hooked up to a power source or anything like this. They were just in a box by themselves. So that specific geometry has some sort of interaction with whatever is flowing through Elephantine Island. A couple hours ago, we just got the greatest interview of all time with the former Minister of Truth, Antiquities of Egypt, Zahi Hawass. He covered the pyramid energy focusing, the plasma bubbles above the pyramid. All of this by giving us the true meaning of what the hieroglyphs were talking of my highlights.
Because most of the information that's written on pyramids are wrong.
Most of it?
Most of it.
In archaeology books?
In archaeology books.
Really?
Except me. I'm the only Egyptologist who have an open mind.
Really?
That I always look.
One?
Yes. I am not a scientist. I am not a scientist.
Right, so
again, I am not a scientist.
Right, so why you don't believe in carbon dating?
I am a scientist.
Oh.
I am the scientific director who really, if they discover something, they come to me.
You do believe in magic?
Yeah.
So you believe that someone could take someone's head off, put it back on?
It's written.
Okay, then it must be true.
Yeah.
Why is this not online?
Who never put it in line? It's in my book.
Okay, so he didn't say any of that stuff. The world has wanted to know why that box exists in that tunnel and why there are huge shafts in Egypt that go down untold feet, and why the box here is underneath the pyramid that looks like a computer chip. At some point, you have to go for yourself and see all of this stuff, but if you can't, most of us would prefer not to get a story that does not make sense. We're just tired of being told what to think. I will cover everything I talked about on my YouTube a little later tonight, and the science about why this doesn't add up anymore. Hear me out. Okay, I didn't know if this was even real, so I flew 8,000 miles across the ocean to try and find it carved into a wall, and I did. In Edfu, which I will explain the importance of later. But first, we need to break down what the whole hieroglyph means first. So we'll start with the Ankh. That is toroidal geometry, or the geometry of a smoke ring. Donut. Air goes in the top, it shoots out as a tornado in the bottom. The sides form a donut shape containing all the smoke. Cut it in half, it looks like an apple. You can make this geometry just by using harmonically drawn circles. The Ankh is a shorthand icon so you don't have to draw all those circles, but every culture has really encapsulated the shape in some form or another. Even our fusion reactors use this geometry for energy production. This guy, Bob Grenier, tipped me off to this when he was describing how the thunderstorm generator worked. That thing takes exhaust gas, like from your car, and literally transmutes it into breathable oxygen using plasma. So what about the JED? The JED generates the magnetic field that shapes the plasma into a donut. The Greek Ionic column and the Sumerian column also show magnetic geometry. But the biggest clue is in a relief in Abydos. The pillars tilted the same degree the Earth is tilted, which is determined by the rotation of the insides of the planet. That rotation creates the magnetic field of the planet and is the reason why we see auroras, which are also plasma. Now, I didn't just find this in one place in Edfu, I found it all over Edfu. This is crazy because Edfu is a very special temple. Edfu tells the story of the original followers of Horus who built Egypt. They called it Zep Tepi, the first occurrence. It's in the Edfu building text. Plato got the entire Atlantis legend from Solon. This is after Solon visited Egypt, likely at Edfu. Could the walls be showing how they did it? One video could not do that topic justice. There's much more starting on page 110 of Cryptex. Breathe, break, take a deep one through your nose. We are in a fear cycle of content, and if I can show you something that's just crazy enough to blow your mind, maybe we can escape it temporarily. This is one of the craziest things I've ever learned about ancient Egypt, and it has to do with the Milky Way. So when we're looking at the Milky Way, we are looking straight through it. That's called the Great Rift, and these guys use it to navigate. It's how they roll the dung balls back home. Also, one of the most popular symbols in ancient Egypt, associated with the god Khepri. Khepri uses starlight to navigate through the afterlife. Same way our boy brings home his very own poop star. Now, scarab mainly represented life. Not eternal, but mortal life. But they also threw protection in there per usual. So I flew down there and I talked to a bunch of people to get clarification on what this actually means. This guy has a protective circle. The feathers are the angles that light gets reflected inside a sphere. A perfect optical sphere will break white light up into its red, green, and blue colors, which you can see on the wings of the beetle. The angle at which it does that is the angle of the Great Pyramid. So the solar disk that the beetle is holding gets split up into its colors, and those wings go into the scarab? The scarab is the protective layer for the soul. That's represented by those hands called the Ka. The hue man is that light manifested. The top-down view of your skull is the same shape as the scarab shell. The scarab's wings unfolded, it matches up with the two hemispheres of the brain. That solar disk is right where your optic nerves meet in here. And if you look at an MRI, you'll see why the legs are positioned in the way that they are. This one is the navigator, but that's for a later video.
Where should you invest $100 today? Well, according to Elon Musk, anyone who invests in his company
That's over? You know, I could watch that again for a while or yes? We're gonna stop that, I guess. Well, come back on later. That'll just be him. I like that guy. He's on my algorithm all the time. The guy definitely has a lot of knowledge. I'd like to know where he sits spiritually. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.
you